Oh my god, I'm suffering from jet lag. But that doesn't matter. We're going to be looking at my top 10 best, worst games in my PlayStation 2 collection. Game on! So I got a few hundred PlayStation 2 games in my collection, and I actually managed to get a lot of these when I worked at Sony. Every 3 months or so, Sony would have a big boardroom filled up with games that they would sell off for charity, and you'd go in there and for £1 a game you could pick up any game you want. So I used to walk away with about 20 games at a time, and some of those were amazingly rare games and some of them were complete chuff. Today we're going to be looking at 10 of the games that I think the best of the worst that I've got in my collection. So at number 10, we've got Mr. Mosquito.
I've had enough!
Mr. Mosquito was originally a Japanese-only release, but following the success of Katamari Damacy, where a lot of people in the UK and Europe were importing Katamari Damacy from Japan over to the UK, Fresh decided to release Japanese quirky games over here in the UK. Now the game is rubbish, but I really like the quirkiness of the game. It was kind of something that was going around Japan at the time, and especially on PlayStation 2, these super quirky games. So although Mr. Mosquito is quite a bad game, it's hard to control, it's sometimes difficult to know what the objective is, it is fun and quirky. And once you get into it and you start getting used to how poor the control system is, and you get past the first or second family member, you start to have a lot more fun with it. So at number 9, we have Dog's Life. And let me just get the box for a second here. This game wasn't great, but the developers tried to tempt you to buy this game with free stickers inside. Let's have a look at these free stickers. And there they are. These free stickers make it worth buying this game. So the premise of the game is that you're a dog, and your lady dog and yourself get kidnapped. But during the kidnap, you manage to escape. Don't know what else to say about that. I don't know what else can I say about it. There's some humor in it, but it's toilet humor, and it's not really funny. But again, it's quirky, playing the dog, going into your scent. The whole screen goes black and white, and you can just see different colors from different scents. And you collect these scents, and then you can kind of trade them in for different things.
Whoa, did something die?
At number 8, we have The Bouncer. The goal of the game is essentially a beat 'em up, kind of Streets of Rage in 3D, but just not as good. The camera is rubbish. You can hardly see your player most of the time. He always cuts out of the screen. It's difficult to pull off moves. The combat is slow. It's boring. The moves are boring. Now they never made a Bouncer 2, and it's not surprising really, it was a commercial and critical failure. But if you play Kingdom Hearts, you'll notice that Soren here looks exactly like Sora. So the game kinda lived on through Kingdom Hearts. At number 7, we have 13. So 13 is a beautifully presented game. It has this really nice comic book cel shaded effect to it. Now the reason why this is my best worst top 10 is because whilst it is first person, they have this kind of exploration element in it, and it looks like the team have tried to do too much because they neglect a lot of the first person shooter stuff. The first person shooter gameplay is just okay. It's not brilliant, it's not terrible, it's just okay, which makes it a bit drab as you're going around through the gunfights, which is a real pity because the presentation is really, really good in this, and the story isn't too bad either. And number 6, EyeToy Group. Way before Just Dance we had EyeToy Group. And in this game, unlike Just Dance where you're dancing along to actual dancers, in EyeToy Group you have to actually hit markers as icons move towards them. Kind of like how Guitar Hero works. It's a lot of fun to play. The markers on it are really cool. The fact that when you move your hand over here or over here, it reads it perfectly. It's a good fun game, but it'll only last you a few hours and then you'll never play it again. Unless, of course, you do a video about your best, worst PS2 games. Fun fact, dancers in the background all worked at London studio. In fact, one of the girls in the video was the producer on The Getaway. At number 5 we got Vampire Knight, and this is another gun game from Namco, and the best thing about this game is that you can use the Joy-Con 45 from your PlayStation 1 with this game, and that's one of the things I loved about the PlayStation 2. You could use controllers, leads, games, memory cards. Could you use memory cards? Anyway, you could use a ton of stuff from your original console on the PlayStation 2.
Help me! Everyone's turning into vampires.
Stay back.
It's not as good as the original Time Crisis or any of the other Time Crisis that followed. If you've got a G-Con 45 or a G-Con 2, it might be worth picking up this game for your PlayStation 2 collection. At number 4, Zombie Hunters. Really, Tamsoft? Really? So, Zombie Hunters. Sounds kind of cool. Go around, hunt some zombies, you got swords. Probably the worst thing about this game is how scantily dressed these girls are. In fact, the only physics you will find in this game are on the girls in the game, which says a lot for it. But the gameplay is a lot of fun. Going around, hacking up zombies, the sword gameplay is very cool, the special moves that you can do in it are very cool. This game has had a lot of success. It spawned a number of sequels. When I was at TGS in Japan in 2014, there was a sequel there as well that you could play. And in fact, the game pod for the game in TGS was the main character, and you put your head through her bra, and they had 2 pods, and so you could have 2 players, and you put your head inside, and that's where you played the game. And that kind of sums up this series and the game and the tone that they're going for. At number 3, Urban Reign. Bear with me, we're getting there. So Urban Reign is a brawling game. Now the presentation in this game is brilliant, and actually the fighting is really good. It's fast, the punches feel like you're crunching into people, they got special moves, you can vary them, you can do combo moves. They've even got Tekken characters in the game, which is fantastic. After you've done the first few fights, which feel great, it just repeats that over and over again. You go into an environment, there's a couple of guys that come along, you beat those guys up, you get a cutscene, and you load into the next environment. And it just rinse and repeats this over and over again until you end up dying of boredom with the game. Now, if the bouncer had the fighting mechanics and camera of this game, it would be stunning, but it doesn't. At number 2, Extermination. It's got a pretty cool box, this one. Now, Extermination is pretty much Resident Evil, and not the original Resident Evil 1 and 2 and 3, but more like Resident Evil 5 and 6.
Roger!
Move it!
Don't move!
Graphically, the game is good, especially when you consider when this came out. This was a first generation PlayStation 2 title, and it actually looked really good for a first generation PlayStation 2 title, one of the best that was out there. I can definitely recommend picking up Extermination. It's a really nice alternative to the Resident Evil series. At number 1 we got Primal from Sony Computer Entertainment. Now, it was almost pipped by Ghost Hunter, also from Sony Computer Entertainment, both developed by Cambridge Studio. And the reason why it's number 1 and Ghost Hunter isn't It's because Ghost Hunter is just a reskinning of Primal. So Primal had all the makings for being a AAA blockbuster game, but it was let down by a few shoddy mechanics and boring gameplay. The graphics were fantastic for this game. Sony's Cambridge studio were well known for building some of the best looking games on the console. The character design in it was amazing, and the tech that was in here, the graphical tech that was in here was brilliant. You had depth of field, you had morphing, the characters would morph from one state to the other on screen. It was visually stunning.
I must discover my son's fate and find those who have wronged him.
The script was really good and the voice acting was some of the best on the console. But when it came to gameplay, that's where it fell down. The combat system in the game relied on you using the shoulder buttons rather than the face buttons. And this made it really unintuitive and boring to fight. It didn't feel like the character was making contact with the enemy when you pressed the shoulder buttons. And then there was the gameplay in between combat. Most of the gameplay between the two characters involved one getting stuck and not being able to pass an obstacle, and you having to use the other character to wander off aimlessly into the environment to then clear that obstacle so you could both progress.
Too high for me to jump.
But all in all, it's not a terrible game. It has got some of the best graphics you will find on the PlayStation 2. The character design is fantastic in it, and the story is quite compelling. And there's some truly amazing moments visually when you play this game. So it's definitely worth picking up. Just don't expect it to be the best game in your PlayStation 2 collection.
They can smell fear, you know.
Half-breed, there he goes again.
Goodbye, Jen.
It would be great to hear about what your top 10 best, worst PlayStation 2 games are in the comments below. If you want to get more of a PlayStation fix, you can go over to my video over here where we look at the launch lineup of the PlayStation 1 and one specific title which was the best that you could play at the launch of PlayStation 1. See you all next week for some more retro gaming. Hopefully I'll get over my jet lag by then. Don't forget to hit the little icon below to subscribe to the channel.